turn the temperature up to like 74. Thank you. Because 70 is a little chilly. Hey there, friends. Yeah, here we are. Episode 6. Everyone's got kids now. Hey. And grudges. Kids and grudges. Yes, sir. Thanks, friends, for tuning in. This is a spoiler-free stream, which means I will not be discussing the events past this episode, the events of Fire and Blood, obviously, that go past this episode. So, here we are, and yes, you can ask your questions with super chats. That's the best way to do it, or you can just try to tag me in the text. But yeah, we'll see. Where should we start? Vhagar, hello, Nana. Yeah, we've got to start with. In fact, let me go ahead and see if I can get. Nana Vhagar's. Let's see. Oh, I gotta find. Oh God. Show overlays window. I overlaid a bunch of super chats last time. Well, we saw Nana. So what do we think of Laena's death? I guess let's deal with that first. That was definitely... There we go. There she is. There's Nana. Nana Vhagar. So obviously sad Laena's gone. But I will just point out that that's, she doesn't have a huge role in Fire and Blood. So I feel like they gave us as much Laena as we could hope for. I need to make Nana bigger here. Why is Nana's not filling the whole chat? Okay, I'm going to have to just deal with this, I guess. Yeah, so like I said, Laena's not in the story very long. She's really just a few lines almost, maybe a couple paragraphs in Fire and Blood. So we got a fair amount of Laena action, and honestly, I like the death. I mean, I'm not sad. I mean, I'm not happy she's dead, obviously, but that was a good way to go out. Asking Nana to Dracarys her. Of course, she said she wants to die like a dragon lord, and definitely a noble death. It's a death of a dragon lord. Intentional contrast, to Aemma Arryn. And the whole thing started with parallels to Aemma. Like Rhaenyra's giving birth at the beginning seemed parallel to Aemma. And then, of course, we have it come up again with Laena's pregnancy. So Laena didn't live long enough to become a villain, so she died with honor. Yeah, that's maybe a good way to put it. Everyone that lives long enough in this story does become fairly villainous. That's true. So, guys, I was not able to watch the behind the episodes. It wouldn't pop up for me, and I had to go live. So if anyone has watched the behind the episodes and there's any key facts, tidbits that affect our interpretation, feel free to drop that in the chat. That's always helpful. I'd like to go live and get with you as soon as I can, so I did not have time to watch it this week. But wow. Yes, lots to discuss. And I see Greywaste Tim and Gabe the Griffin in the chat. Thank you, folks. Mr. Carsnark. Katie Artist 94 asking if you could have dinner with only one House of the Dragon character besides Nanny Vhagar, of course, because you'd probably end up dinner. What would you choose? What questions would you ask? Well, probably Daemon. He's been reading all those books in Reggio's library in Pentos about dead dragon lords. That was quite the tidbit. Daemon reading about dead dragon lords. So that's Valyrian stuff. Of course, Pentos is a city that is a colony of, it was founded as a colony of Valyria. Or at least it became a colony of Valyria. Pentos actually has older origins. So that was a Valyrian colony built on top of an older city. But heavy Valyrian influence in Pentos. So their libraries definitely going to have some good Valyrian reading. Greywaste Tim is watching the behind the episode. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, Laena didn't want to go out like Aemma, and the writers didn't feel she would go out that way either. Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. And they were clear about that earlier when she said, I want to eventually die like a dragon lord, and she did. So, geez, where do I start? Honey, can you find my phone? I want to use my phone to look at my little outline that I've got. Thank you, dear. Minty in the chat and outside the chat in the IRL. So there's a lot going on here, and this is a big catch-up episode because of the time jump. So let's go ahead and go through the scenes here. If I get a good super chat that interrupts the flow, I may bounce to that scene, but feel free to throw the questions at me. So good, I was in tears. Yeah, so Carol Funk, that's a good idea. Let's talk about overview of the episode. I like how all the scenes flowed into each other. Not every scene, but a lot of them did. So that was cool. And yes, we see lots of more villainy going on. Criston Cole and Alicent both fully into the classical villain roles. That's pretty interesting. And, one of the reasons I've been taking Alicent's side, or maybe we might say looking for empathetic angles on her, is because eventually those of us who've read Fire and Blood know that she is going to end up in a more villainous role, at least to some characters. So definitely a lot changed with Alicent over this gap. So that's going to be a big thing to talk about. Criston Cole. I think I hated Criston Cole more than anyone else in this episode. Teaching kids to bully each other, and the way that he was training the one kids and not the other, I will say that triggered me. That unfair discipline towards the kids. Now, could have been strategically designed by Criston to provoke Harwin, because you see that him being able to provoke Harwin had incredible political fallout, which they used to their advantage, they being the Greens. So it could very well be that Criston has learned to play the game a little bit, and that he was trying to provoke Harwin with that accusation to get the rumors around. And this is all happening right after the birth of Rhaenyra's third child, who has strong brown hair, strong hues of brown hair, as they say. Vagar with Godzilla vibes, says Dascobra. Absolutely Godzilla vibes. That's clearly the inspiration that they're going for, and it kind of makes sense. Nanny Godzilla, it's good. There will be new memes coming, don't worry. The show is really trying to make us hate the Greens. I don't think so. I mean, I think there's, Daemon's a murderer, and he can't even barely comfort his children, and he's kind of shitty to Laena in several scenes there. And we'll get into the whole thing with Rhaenyra, her mysterious choice to have children with Harwin, even though that was going to create all the predictable problems that it's creating here. So this is a tragedy. This is a tragedy in the sense that we are watching downfall of the dynasty, downfall of characters. So yeah, we are getting into the meat of it now. And you could tell the adult, and to continue with a sort of overarching angles on the show, it has a different feel now. Oh, is that Gray Area in the chat? Wow, I'm honored with your presence, Miss Gray Area. We know you have choices. Thanks for choosing the David Lightbringer channel. It was a very strong episode. I agree, Kyle. It was. But what was I saying? Overarching things. Yes. Oh, God, that just flew right out of my head. I was so excited to see Gray Area. What was I saying? Help me out. Minty, what was I just talking about?
Overarching Greens. The Greens not hating the Greens.
Yeah, no, we can hate everyone now. Hate everyone. No, what I was saying is that the show has a more adult feel. The vibe has changed. Rhaenyra and Alicent being older, they're both way more seasoned and savvy. Rhaenyra using the back tunnels to eavesdrop, and Alicent with Larys Strong, halfway under her thumb. Although that last scene where was really great, where she's horrified to learn what Larys has done on her behalf. Gray, tell me what you think. While I got you here, tell me what you think about their version of how they did the Harrenhal fire. This was one of the big mysteries in the books. Who set the fire in Harrenhal? And it's unclear to me if Larys or if Lionel died as well. I think so. Harwin definitely died in that fire. In the books, both Lionel and Harwin die in that fire. So it was unclear to me, but I think they both did. So Larys being the one to set the fire, I think that works pretty well. Larys Strong, of course, is very hard to get a beat on, so we don't really know how villainous he is. They went with extremely villainous. Killed his father and brother. So I guess we did need a character like that. So yeah, everybody did. Thank you, Girl Nuddles. Okay. So Yeah, I thought it was a cool way to resolve it. There was part of me that wondered if Viserys had set the fire again in the books to kill Harwin and silence these rumors about his grandsons. But no, it makes sense that Lionel did it. You know, Lionel and Daemon are the kind of characters that could order these sorts of deeds. I think there's not too many others. So yeah, I might say Larys and Lionel interchangeably. Sometimes I'm really bad with that. We all know that Lionel is dad. Dad is dead. Larys is alive and spidering. Yes, apologies. So Larys is a kinslayer, and I loved Olivia Cook's Alicent throughout the episode. That last scene, it looked like she was on acid and feeling the spiders crawling over her. She's like, "What did you do? Oh my God." She's like, it's shades of her fingernail picking, I guess, but it was definitely like jittery fingers on her arms. Maybe they were trying to skid her down to her fingernails, but like the body language acting there was just like, she was so obviously disturbed, which is, I mean, anybody would be. It's like, you just killed your family, dude. Holy shit. So yeah, like I said, we did need a character like that. And here he is. Larys the Clubfoot. That was cold. So yeah, the overall vibe of the show is different now with the older actors, and this feels like it's really shifting into high gear. Was pretty. I did not expect that. I was thinking more like, oh, you know, Millie and Emily did so good with Alicent and Rhaenyra. Yeah, Larys and Varys, they rhyme for a reason, exactly. I was so busy thinking about how good a job the younger actors did that I was like, oh well, I hope the older actors can measure up, you know. And it's like, whoa, now we're in the big leagues, kind of. And it's obviously not meant to say one actor over the other, but it's like the parts are different. The characters that they're acting are more actualized. These adult characters, like I said, Rhaenyra using the passageways herself, just as Varys did. And Larys being the spider for Alicent. So this is cool. It's a lot of echoes in this episode. Let's see. There was a few. Let me go to my notes. There was definitely a few echoes to Ice and Fire things. Okay, yeah. So when King Viserys was teaching biology, I had a black horse and a silver horse, and they had a chestnut foal, so who knows? Nature's mysterious. That was fun. He mentioned that the mare, one of the horses, I forget which, was as silver as a moon on a winter night. So that obviously made us think of Dany's silver, and Dany's silver is specifically, it's gray and silver, and the gray is compared to a winter sea. So I thought that was very evocative of Dany's silver. That was dope. And yes, so exactly, Trey. Emma is amazing as Rhaenyra, and Olivia as Alicent is amazing. So they've cast all of these actors really well. They look like the younger characters. They feel like an older version of these characters. So really impressive. After today's episode, is it more likely that Harwin caused Larys' clubfoot? I've never heard that theory. So it would be like a Sandor and Gregor thing, perhaps some sort of brotherly abuse. I can see that. I've never heard that theory. I don't know if that's tinfoil, if there's evidence for it or what, but interesting. It could be an echo of that. I could see that. It could sort of work. So, all right. It's going to be this kind of stream. Gonna have to take a sip of the Henny. Your favorite podcaster, Dave's been doing a lot of streams lately. All right, yeah. Give me some weird paste emojis. That will help me. That's what I need. But yeah, I've just got the scenes all in order here, so let's charge through them. Like I said, the opening burst scene. We're talking about Emma Darcy as Rhaenyra. So how about the acting? Right there, giving birth, close up on the face, slow zoom out, very squishy sound effects. Obviously, the audience is getting chills here. We're thinking of Emma. She even looks like Emma Arryn. They've set the scene similar. They framed it similar. And yeah, so this is even more intense than it would be because of the direct echoes of Aemma. And that also feels like a tribute to Aemma. We're called back to the moment when Emma's laying there telling Rhaenyra, your turn will come. And she's saying, no, it won't. And of course, now it has come. Seems like Helaena is a dreamer. Cool that they are giving magic more of a role. She has a real head in the clouds vibe, says Brennan. Yeah, she was playing with some sort of millipede and talking about wings and stuff. I don't know if I caught all the dialogue. I want to go back and check it out. But I agree that it was a very dreamy sort of vibe from her. And I also have been wondering if, since they're giving Viserys this dreaming gift, if we'd see maybe a couple people in the next generation manifest the gift. So maybe they'll go in that kind of a direction with Helaena. That would be cool. I would dig that. And I'm trying to read this chat. It's moving so fast. A person in Essos who dyed their beard purple. What's Dario doing alive? Well, that's the thing. That's a tradition. That's a custom. So, yeah, the Pento stuff was great. I really liked that. It was a little different in the book. It was their honeymoon, but it works just as well. So that was cool. Let's see. Oh my God, this chat is moving so fast. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do it. Let me just. Oh, I've got it right here. Okay, this won't be hard.
We've got 1,000 people watching.
Yeah, thank you everybody. Please hit the like button if you're here. Thanks a lot. I will answer all of your questions before I leave. You can be sure of that. Customization, that's what I'm looking for. Slow mode. We'll go with 20 seconds. That should do it. And I'm also gonna do a thing, guys. I'm gonna put this on subscribers only mode. So what this means is that in order to comment in the chat, you will need to subscribe to the channel. Good news, super easy. Red button right under there. Click it once. That's all you need to do. Then you can comment freely. There you go. So shameless promotional techniques. I know. Person that just downvoted me. It's okay. It'll be all right. So second scene, that was dope. The birth, mainly the Aemma call-outs, I really like that. Alicent and Viserys demand to see the baby. So what do we think of that? That was when Alicent wants to see the kid right away. It seems very unreasonable, right? Very unreasonable of Alicent to do. And at first I was like, this is stretching believability. But it's really not. She wanted to see the kid. It was Rhaenyra's choice to go. Obviously, she knew that Rhaenyra would come, so it's a cruel move, but I think it is believable. Because Alicent is so worked up about this paternity issue, which, of course, she's right about. We can see that they're Harwin's kids. They discussed that in the episode, and we'll get to that. But this is something that Alicent feels like she's the only one that can see this thing, and everyone else is pretending. So there's an Emperor wears no clothes thing going on here, and Alicent feels essentially gaslit. So that's why she's acting so. And again, we're not justifying. Alicent is acting very cruel, and the reason why is because she's been obsessing over this thing for a while. And Viserys is essentially gaslighting her, being like, I don't know what you're talking about, Alicent. They're brown horse and white horse and chestnut horse. It's fine. No issue here. So I think it is believable that Alicent would do something that cruel to demand to see the kid right after. And that's definitely a cold way to open it. So we're right in the feels right away. And then, at the end of Rhaenyra bringing her kid, yes, very Cersei-esque, bringing her kid to show Alicent and Viserys, we see that she's left a trail of blood behind her. And then we realize that she's probably been leaving a trail of blood the whole way, or periodically throughout the whole way. And they weren't showing it. I had a feeling something was going on. The camera never panned down to her feet the whole time she's walking up the steps, and you could see the reactions around her. Everyone's sort of like, oh my God. And at first you're thinking, oh, maybe that's just because they could see she's just given birth. But literally, she's leaving a trail of blood. This also reminds me a little bit of Dany's dream, where she's leaving bloody footprints on the stone. I don't know if that was intentional, but definitely holy crap, right? That's gut-wrenching. And I like that they're not obviously doing this, when we saw the Aemma scene, it was like, oh God, that was very, very shocky, very horrific. We were one. I think most people were like, okay, they're demonstrating the way that childbirth is also like a battlefield, and that it is the women's battle, and that it can take your life and all this stuff. But I think some people were also worried that it was a little bit spectacle-y. So I think that now we're seeing. They said that they were going to do various versions of childbirth and complications in childbirth. So I think that they're handling it pretty well. And I think that they really are using everything for storytelling. Just as we said about the sex scenes in episode 4, they were all being used for storytelling. So I think that they're handling it pretty well. I'll look forward to seeing other people's opinions, specifically, obviously, women's opinions on this. But I think they're handling it pretty well. Mad Danny thoughts, and Harwin was definitely serving Brandon Stark. You mean giving Brandon Stark vibes? Is that? Yeah, definitely. Harwin made an impression. He was pretty awesome. And let me see here. I'm hitting up Emma Darcy's DMs after this episode, really loving Aegon II. That's inappropriate. Yes, but she was amazing. And am I up to date on Super Chats, by the way, Minty? Okay, there's a few in the doc. All right, I'm going to try to stay on top of those. She said Aemond would have to lose an eye to get his dragon. Did she? I don't think so.
She said he'd have to close an eye.
Oh, close an eye. Huh. That's interesting. I'll have to go back and look at that. Did you guys already mention Helena's prophecy vision with the millipede? We did mention it. I didn't realize it was a whole prophecy vision. I mentioned that it was interesting and dreamy, but I got to rewatch that one. That was there was a lot of this dialogue went by really fast. Let me see here. I'm going to pull up this doc, also known as the Nimble doc. Carol Funk says, episode 6 was so good. I was in tears, better and better. I officially hate Alicent Hightower. Well, now there's a little bit of a reason to hate her. I mean, or at least to feel some emotions about it. I didn't find it reasonable in the first 5 episodes, but now there's obviously a little more teeth showing. And several times Alicent reminded us of Otto, didn't she? Like the way that she wrapped up the small council reminded us a lot of the way that Otto was running the first small council meeting and Viserys was kind of sidelined. So we can see at this point that Viserys is very old and that he's constantly no, I'll answer it. And Alicent's like, no, you're resting. So there's a little bit of like, okay, Grandpa, like, no, we're not obeying you. And so this is Alicent gathering political power. People can see that she's overrules the king at times. That makes it easier for people to obey her when she comes and tells them what to do. So Alicent has definitely been amassing power, and she definitely reminds us of Otto in a couple of these scenes. The boys are not mortal enemies from birth, Davin says. Actually closer to Viserys' vision of one house, one family makes the story more tragic. Yeah, I really liked that choice, that the boys aren't necessarily hating on each other. Instead, they're doing a thing that kids do, where 1 week, 2 of them are besties and the other one's being picked on, and then it sort of changes around. So I thought that was cool. And it just shows that, like, kids are kids and they kind of have to be taught to hate for the most part. Like bigotry, that's a learned and a taught behavior. Bullying is not. Obviously, childish bullying, that happens, all the time. But yes, Minty, you're right. Criston is encouraging them to bully each other. And it may have been deliberately to provoke Harwin, but I got the feeling that that's how Criston has been training the kids. He's giving most of the instruction to, Aegon and Aemond. Right, who he considers the heirs. Exactly right. Yeah, so he's very Team Green. It's very one-sided. And he's doing it right in front of Viserys, too. So it just kind of shows you Viserys is pretty weak. People don't even pay that much attention to him anymore. Random Polygon, I love that House of the Dragon embraces its high fantasy roots. Maybe it's just me, but I always felt Game of Thrones was ashamed of them. Yeah, certainly they were. They were constantly downplaying the magic. Here we see that they're playing it up, looking for chances to give us Valyrian lore and stuff like that. And yeah, Laena's death was super epic. Definitely. I might have to think about what kind of memes we're going to do. Might have to do some like serious tearjerker memes with Nanny Vagar. Michael Doyle says, I loved the Helaena scene. Definitely rewatched that, but I found it very interesting that Aegon, Luke, and Jace were all friends before the fallout. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Kids are kids. They bully each other, but then they, like I said, then they're friends again later too. So Heart of Winter says, Helaena, a dreamer, a very small line I wasn't expecting, but loved it. Yeah, like I said, it makes sense. Her dragon is well, I guess I don't want to say. Does she? Well, they've said that Aemond is the only one without a dragon, but they haven't said which one her dragon is. But anyways, well, there's a clue there if you want to look it up. Okay, read that one. Did Aegon's window scene have any plot significance? Jess M says. Oh, you mean when he was jerking off in the window? So did anyone else get Monty Python Life of Brian vibes? Remember when Brian opens the shutters and he's naked and the whole crowd is waiting for him? I thought maybe there was a little tip to that. But yeah, I think we're just supposed to see that Aegon isn't taking things seriously, as a boy of 16 tends to do. Come back to him in a second. I love the confirmation of Vhagar's colors being greenish, completing the parallel between Dany's dragon's color palettes and those of the Conquerors. Yeah, for sure, because Meraxes is said to be silver, which is close to off-white of Viserion. Yeah. When Vhagar hesitated to burn Laena, it broke my heart. It truly demonstrates the intelligence and loyalty of dragons. Totally. Very well done with the hesitation and the sounds, the rumbling, the sad dragon rumbling sounds. But of course, Vhagar and Laena have a psychic link. So Vhagar would have understood that Laena was in pain and that she wanted to die. It wasn't just the command. The psychic bond is informing Vhagar of Laena's state and what she wishes. So, well done. It was a well done death scene. I got Tom in flashbacks. Oh, at the window. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that they're foreshadowing anything there. I think it was literally because the whole scene was about how Aegon isn't taking things seriously and Alicent's getting in his face. Like, you are the threat. You are the challenge. Your very existence. And it was very shocking when she said that. But of course, it's believable because she's absorbed the thinking of Otto, which is that ultimately Rhaenyra is going to have to kill all of you to keep a hold on the throne. So for her, this is a game of life and death. And that also informs why Alicent is so intense in all of these scenes and kind of over the top. Swagger Dagger says, hot take, but I think Laena death scene was stupid. I'm sorry, they could have adapted it straight from Fire and Blood and still would have proved she was an incredibly strong woman. Yeah, I mean, everybody can disagree, I guess, but I liked it. Sir Crispy, 10 years of petty after a one-night stand. Yeah, 10 years later, he's still, Rhaenyra's selfish, whatever he said, I forget what. But yeah, I like how Alicent stopped him and was like, we will win with honor and goodness. Goodness and virtue and decency will prove out. You must remember that. And it's like, dude, you know that Criston is not honorable or decent. So it's a little bit of self-deception there on Alicent's part. My dad and I keep arguing because he hates Alicent and Criston Cole while I'm here being Team Green, although it's hard to make the claim they're all gray. Pulp Fiction nightmares. So gray character. Gray character means... It doesn't mean that they're in the middle between a good guy and a bad guy. That's not what it means. What it means is that heroism and villainy are not permanent states. They are transient states. So any person can commit a heroic or a villainous act. And people themselves are not always heroic or villainous. There's a couple that may, Ramsay's always villainous. Probably find a character that almost always does the right thing. And I'm not going to skip. Don't worry. If I missed your super chat, I've got it in a doc. I'm working my way through them. And I'll try to get it as quick as possible. But yeah, that's all the gray character means, is that every character in any given scene, you might agree or disagree. You might think, oh, that was the right thing to do, or that wasn't the right thing to do. And we've seen that with Viserys. We've criticized him many times, but also agreed. Rhaenyra is a very gray character. We empathize with her in a lot of scenes, even though we have to judge some of her actions pretty harshly. So that's what it means. It means Alicent is playing a villain role, but we can also understand why she's doing it, and we can get in her head and understand what her mindset is. And that doesn't justify anything, but it just means that we understand why she's doing it. Glad we're all adults here. Thank you. Welcome to the David Lightbringer channel, where we hold multiple truths in our head at once, even if it tries to break our brain. Did Aegon's windows... Okay, I read that. Emma's amazing. Yep, read that. Read that. A person in Essos... Okay, read that. So, Heart of Winter is saying, how much Dreamfire resembled Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion? Definitely reinforces they are eggs taken by Alyssa Farman. So is Dreamfire supposedly is the dragon that Aemond met, right? I don't know that they said that in the episode, but I think I've heard that was what that was. No. Remember when Aemond went down and he's lurking around in the chamber, the dragon that roared at him? I've heard that is Dreamfire, and you could see that one did look like Dany's dragons. So I don't know if they said that in the episode, but I believe I did. I've heard that is Dreamfire. So we will see. And I'm always here for the Alyssa Farman stuff, of course. Cam Cobain, Daemon seems to struggle with showing emotions. Yes, he does. They very pointedly showed us not really comforting his kids. He's there with them. They're in the moment together, but he's not like holding either one of them. So yeah, that's Daemon. Wish we could have seen Sunfire. I want to see more scenes where they're just flying around, exploring with their dragons. Oh, we'll see Sunfire. Don't worry. We will see Sunfire. Timon Targaryen. Oh, nice. That's a good name. Still believe if Rhaenys had hair like she did in the book, no one would question Rhaenyra about her sons. No, that's absolutely wrong, because everyone questions Rhaenyra about her sons in the book. Everyone does. I mean, the kids, Aegon, when he's 9, or he's maybe like 12, I guess, has already, says, oh, everybody knows they're Strongs. Anybody can see it. And it's the same thing in the book. Like, yeah, there's a small chance that maybe with one grandparent with dark hair, all 3 kids came out with dark hair, but it's not very likely. And it's not just the hair color either. They also look like Harwin. So, yeah, it's obvious in the books. Many people question it. It's an emperor who wears no clothes thing in the books too. So it's just the same. It doesn't really have anything to do with the change on Laenor, in my opinion. Or the change in Rhaenys' hair color. Yeah, so I'm read that one. Rhaenyra is technically the most powerful person in King's Landing. She's the heir and a dragon rider. Wish she had pulled a power move at the meeting. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by a power move. I think she was definitely present in the small council meeting. And we're supposed to intuit that it's been like that her and Alicent are constantly sparring across the table at each other. Certainly Rhaenyra wasn't shy about asserting her ideas and all that. So, and she made a good political overture and a good suggestion. Marrying Aegon or Jacaerys and Helaena is a good idea. So, yeah. In the books, it's actually Alicent who suggests a couple of wedding arrangements that would have been smart. So that's a little bit of a change, but it made sense given where the characters are, I thought. But yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by a power move. So I can't believe Alicent embarrassed her like that. Well, Alicent's view, which is understandable, is that Rhaenyra having kids that are obviously Harwins and asking everyone to pretend that they're not is an embarrassment and an insult to the king and to the court. That's what Alicent said to Viserys. So, of course, she's willing to try to humiliate Rhaenyra because Rhaenyra is humiliating the king in an ongoing fashion. So, again, not that either one is justified, but that's why it's happening. That's why the character's acting that way. Let's see. Pretty much just jumped into the series. This episode was awesome as hell to catch up with. Did you think that the Vhagar night scene was justified, though? You mean when Vhagar Dracarys Laena? Yeah, I mean, I think it made sense. And the idea, the first scene that we saw with Daemon and Vhagar, where they're flying in front of the crowd and they're sort of doing tricks. Vhagar blows a puff of fire and Caraxes flies through it. That's in keeping with the books. They go on a tour of several cities to cheering crowds, and they're sort of, they're feasted and dined and hosted because everyone wants to see the dragons. So the idea that they'd put on a little show for them, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. Where is Alicent's woman's code? The woman's code is long in the past. They're looking at it as a contest to the death. This is the Game of Thrones where you win or you die. So this isn't women's code anymore. We're way past that. That broke in episode 5 when Alicent found out that Rhaenyra had lied to her. So that's when that was gone. And then she came to Rhaenyra's wedding in a green dress and like caused a big stink at it. So let's see here. I read that one. Read that one. Do you think that you could highlight the ones I have not read?
I think you've got it.
Okay, I think I've got them. Oh, well, that's why they're not highlighted. Very good, very good.
You did the one about Vhagar?
Which one about Vhagar?
The night scene was justified. People are upset that she didn't die like in the books.
In the books, what's cool about Laena's death, she essentially, she gives birth, but has the childbed fever. And so she's dying essentially, and her last deed is to rise from her bed and walk to Vhagar to try to ride Vhagar one more time. She collapses on the castle steps, and Daemon carries her back to, carries her body to bed or whatever, and mourns over her. I thought that this had a lot of the same sort of notes, the same sort of tragic emotion, but also Laena going out showing her love of the dragon. So I don't know. Feel free to disagree in the comments, but I thought it made sense, and I thought it worked much the same in a character building sense. So I don't know. I don't see the issue. Who do we think flies Aemond across the sea to snatch Vhagar? No, I don't. Well, I don't think. Yeah, that's a spoiler. I can't answer that question without spoiling. I can't predict things because I know the story, so it's not really. Yeah. Let's see here. Let's go to the next scene, and feel free to keep debating the Laena thing if you want. So we first get the view of Harwin and Laenor's kind of happy family. I think I like how they did this. We've always wondered how this would go as far as the agreement. It seems as though, and they didn't really answer this question, why did Rhaenyra have Harwin's kids? They don't tell us that like Laenor couldn't, or that we're not really told why. It's kind of mysterious. And I assume we'll find out eventually. We can assume that Harwin and Rhaenyra were in love. They didn't show a lot of affection between them, though. So we really are left to fill in the blanks about why that was happening. And they basically was kind of like Harwin was a surrogate father for the kids. I just don't know why they did that. So, I'm just looking at the chat here.
I feel like they were affectionate. It was subtle, though.
Yeah, okay. Well, no, I'm saying there was some signs of Harwin and Rhaenyra being affectionate. Yeah, it's in the eyes, right? Yeah, no, I'm just saying they didn't really play it up. They didn't show us a torrid love affair. They didn't show them talking alone, going, "I wish I could father these kids in the open, but you can't." Oh, like it wasn't like that. Like Harwin was kind of okay with all the kids thinking that Laenor was dad and calling Laenor dad, and he's just kind of there. So. The awkward thing is that the problem about lying about the parent, well, there's many problems with lying about the parentage, but the most gut-wrenching one for me was little Jace figuring it out. Going, "Mom, am I a bastard? Is Harwin my dad?" And she didn't really tell him. I don't like how Rhaenyra said, "Oh, well, you're a Targaryen and that's all that matters." Because A, that's not all that matters, both in any sense. It matters legally who the father is, and it matters to the kid for his own sense of identity who his father is. And we could talk about nurture and nature, and Laenor's been raising the kids, so Laenor, that's why Rhaenyra says, your true father, Laenor. And I agree that the one who raises the kids is the father. But the problem is that Jace has this identity crisis where he doesn't know, he's trying to figure out the truth about himself. That's pretty tough. That's a pretty tough situation to put a kid in. So I felt for Jace there. And I thought it was a total cop-out for Rhaenyra to be like, you're Targaryen and that's all that matters. She didn't even answer him. And it's like, you knew that was coming, that you'd have to explain to your kids. So, yeah, that's tough. Herlyn Grace says, Laenor offered to give his arm to Rhaenyra and she took it reluctantly, but when Sir Harwin offered his to her, she took it right away. So, right, okay, so there's going to be some subtle stuff there that I'd probably catch on the rewatch then. That makes sense. Yeah, so, but the thing is, yeah, you say Laenor isn't the father, but he's certainly the father that stepped up. Well, he did. He played the role or whatever. But it's not like Harwin abandoned the kids. This was obviously Rhaenyra's arrangement, that Harwin was the surrogate father, but that Laenor would raise the kids. And that's what they were doing. So it's pretty awkward, honestly. And explain the jail scene. Oh yeah, I can explain the jail scene. Yeah, this Rhaenyra thing is complicated. It's like a whole topic into itself. But like I said, I still would like to know what it is that Rhaenyra is thinking, having all 3 kids by Harwin. We're gonna need some sort of explanation on that at some point. The way that Larys looked at Alicent when he was drinking wine the night before his betrayal was like an anaconda stalking a python. Yeah, Larys is pretty creepy. He's definitely given those sinister vibes. One thing I can't wait to see is who they cast as Roddy the Ruin. Yeah, he's a great character for sure. Because the question isn't why did Rhaenyra have a paramour? That's easy. It's obvious why she had a paramour. The question is why she had his kids 3 times. I'm assuming they know how to use moon tea and probably track ovulation and stuff. I mean, women have always known this stuff, right? So, like, I'm pretty sure that Rhaenyra is, to some extent, choosing to have Harwin's kids. I'm just dying to know what she's thinking doing that, because it's predictable they wouldn't come out looking like Laenor, and all of this political drama that's happening, it would be even more out in the open, except for that Viserys is actively shutting everyone up about it. So, yeah. Yeah, and that's what I was saying, like, Laenor, like, he played the part, but not, yeah, Minty's right, not that well. I mean, he's mostly interested in drinking and carrying on and, having a good time. He played the part in that, like, he was there and all that, but, like, yeah, I don't know how much parenting he's doing. We don't see him out in the yard training the Strongs. Like, Harwin's out there sticking up for the Strongs because Criston is being one-sided, but Laenor is a knight and a dragon rider. Why isn't he teaching his kids? Right, yeah, like, he kind of should be there. So, yeah. So, yeah, he's playing the part as far as the political thing. Like, he's putting his reputation on the line and all that, and he's there. But, yeah, I didn't see a lot of strong parenting there. And the fact that he's a knight and a warrior definitely makes his absence in those training yard scenes pretty noticeable. Strong parenting, lol. Yeah, it's hard not to even just say it by accident. He's getting drunk and playing slap and tickle. Yeah, I mean, I did like the complexities of the Rhaenyra-Laenor relationship. It wasn't like Rhaenyra's totally dissing him all the time. Like, she's appreciative of him at certain times and kind to him also. Like, yeah, bring Carl Corey, we'll need him. So it's not like she's acting cruel to Laenor. But there's some distance there, too. Rhaenyra's trying to manage a crazy situation. with this family situation. It really is a lot. Oh, Criston Cole. Let's talk about Criston Cole. I do want to talk about him. I've already said I hate the guy for teaching the kids to bully each other. Because it's obviously what they're doing by having these kids raised together is they're trying to have them grow up as friends. Viserys is talking to Lionel, oh, do you think it's working? Look, it's working. But it seems like Alicent and Criston Cole are both undermining that. We see Alicent talking to Aegon, and we see Cole driving a wedge between the two kids. So yeah, Cole is spiteful. He's petty. He's butthurt. All that stuff. And just, yeah, the bullying, like, I wouldn't say that I was like aggressively bullied, but I was probably teased and picked on a little more than most kids. Anybody with ADHD has that experience, to be honest. We're just not good at taking teasing. We show it really bad when we're upset, and kids being kids, they'll find you and tease you. So that's why I was saying, I was a little, not, I don't want to say triggered, because it's not a deeply traumatic thing that I still think about, but it definitely made me feel something when I saw that bullying and I saw Cole treating the kids unfairly. Like, I really hated the guy at that point. So, and just, yeah, the bitterness, hanging on to the grudge, 10 years. And he's dissing Rhaenyra. He's like, Rhaenyra's and spoiled, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, dude, you wanted to have your cake and eat it too. So, yeah, all these people are hypocrites. Really, they are. I want to write a story like A Song of Ice and Fire. What's your advice? Writing a medieval story to the this grand of a tale. I want to write a story like Dunk and Egg. I don't know if I could give writing advice like that. George always says to start with a short story, just to learn how to run and chew gum. You write a little simple song before you write a 40-minute album like Passion Play, Jethro Tull. So, yeah, it's probably just that. Start small. That's what George says. I wonder how Corlys will react to his son being cuckolded. Yes, we got to talk about that. 1 second.
We talked about Aegon masturbating in the window.
We did, yeah. Remember we said it was like Life of Brian?
Oh yeah, that's so funny. Someone else was like, "Say that again."
We can go back to it. Aegon masturbating in the window. That's kind of the thing about Aegon's character. Like, it's just character building stuff. He's a kid. Kids masturbate. But, the main thing they're trying to show you is that he's not taking it seriously, and that Alicent's trying to turn him into someone who wants to play the Game of Thrones and hate the other people. And kids have to be taught that, like I said. I wonder how Corlys will... Okay, well, that's getting into spoiler territory, but it's one of those things that I would say that those of us who read Fire and Blood, are waiting to see how it plays out on the show. We've speculated about why he might be okay with it, so we'll just have to see. I can't react to it until they show us their version of what they're going to do with that. Let's see what other scenes that we've got to cover that we haven't talked about. So Alicent does have a lot of spiteful lines. I liked that. I think she delivers them well, and it fits the character at this point. It's a wonder their eggs ever hatched. Because that's the thing, like, when someone gaslights you, especially your married partner, you're going to bring that shit up all the time, or you're going to be thinking about it all the time. And the kids are obviously Harwins, and Viserys is telling her not to bring it up. And she is just stewing on that. So yeah, of course it leaks out in comments. And that one where she said to Laenor, do keep trying, Sir Laenor. Sooner or later you get one that looks like you. That was from the books, exactly. So I thought that was a really good use of the book line there. So yeah, she's just chewing on this thing. She's like going, dude, the Emperor wears no clothes. And everyone's like, his clothes are nice. I don't know what you mean. So, like I said, she's being very cruel, but it's believable. It's not just random nastiness. You can understand why. My knightly virtues. Knight who murders a guy and bullies children. Exactly. So there was a line from Criston. He was talking to Aegon, and he said, "Don't stand too upright, my prince, or you'll get knocked down." And I felt like that line was a bit of foreshadowing when it's like Criston is trying to make himself off to be this white knight, and he's not. He's a sullied knight. He's a soiled knight, and it's not even just like that one mistake that he made. He's continuing to be a shit person. He's driving a wedge between the kids. He's mouthing off. He's still sore about the Rhaenyra thing when it was like all of it. So he is standing too upright in the sense that he is a false knight, right? He has false honor. And so he does get knocked down later in that scene. Harwin comes along and knocks him down. So thought that was good. And probably favorite hero of the episode, Harwin Strong, for beating the crap out of Criston. That was definitely well-deserved. Villain of the week, we have to give it to Larys. He killed his father and brother. I do think that Alicent really stepped into the villain role in the sense of the narrative antagonist, villain role. Not saying that you can't understand her or sympathize with her, but definitely a nice, stepmother. The evil stepmother is an archetype. She's doing a version of it, from Rhaenyra's perspective. So well acted, but definitely Larys, villain of the week. Harwin, hero of the week. Tim and Nettles, if you're in the chat, give me your heroes and villains of the week. And everybody give it to me. It's what you guys tend to do anyways. So, yeah. Laena can get a hero of the week. That's definitely so. I think Helaena was great. All the little girls were great. Rhaena and Baela are going to be awesome. They didn't have as many lines, but it's interesting. We see the two kids that can't hatch the dragons. Both feel really bad about it. So Aemond can't bond with a dragon, and little Rhaena has an egg that won't hatch. And Laena says, not all of them do. Half of them don't. We were wondering about that, by the way. So about half.
That was foreshadowing.
What do you mean that was foreshadowing for the baby?
Because she's talking about.
The baby didn't hatch.
And she's holding her tummy while she's saying it.
Yes. So yeah, I guess Laena's baby didn't hatch. Yeah, that's true. That's very sad. That's very sad. So like I said, the kids who can't bond with a dragon or hatch the egg, you can see how much it means to them. All their other cousins and brothers have dragons and they don't. I loved the dragon pit scene. That was one of my favorite scenes from like just a world building, not really an emotional, standpoint, but how they're being trained to command their dragons. And it's like, once you've fully bonded with it, he'll only listen to you. So it starts to tell us about the process of bonding with the dragons and how that works. So the dragon masters are teaching them the commands. The dragons already know the commands, so they're willing to listen to the kids, but the kids, of course, like any animal, they have to dominant pack leader, assertive, calm, assertive, pack leader. I got to learn that tone of voice. But the dragons are smart, of course. They're at least as smart as like a smart dog or a parrot or something like that. So, I love that. I love the whole thing. I love Aemond sneaking down, to maybe see what's up with the dragons down there. And that's exactly, it was believable. It's like he got made fun of, he got teased, and that gave him the courage, to do something a little dangerous and reckless. And of course, Targaryens are restless and chaotic. They are known to be dangerous and to take risks. So we see a little bit of that with Aemond. He's definitely brave to venture down there by himself, right? And a pretty touching scene with his mom. You'll ride a dragon too one day. It's like it's almost like the kids have all learned to ride bikes, and Aemond just can't get it. Say, Mom, I want to ride a bike like the other kids. I want to take my training wheels off, but I keep falling down. Don't worry, you'll ride without your training wheels one day. So that was touching. And this is the whole gray character thing. Like, yeah, we're saying, Alicent, mean in this scene, villainous in that scene. But in that scene, she's being a tender mother, and we can relate to it all. So yeah, that's how we're doing this show here. Everybody's pretty bad at times, but the Game of Thrones brings out the monster in you, just like driving in traffic brings out the monster in everyday good people. Road rage will get you. So, can you go get Cleo?
Yeah, really.
Cleo would love to come on camera and trigger a Cleo emoji storm in the chat.
Wait a second, I'm eating pizza.
Oh, she could definitely wait a second. I'm just, So yes, Vhagar does look amazing, and conveniently we have green dragon emojis. Guys, I have been slacking on making new squisher emojis. I will try to get some colored dragons maybe for our various dragons. Twitter's ahead of me. They're giving us dragon emojis, so I need to do that too. Daemon had a great line where he said, "Valyria is destroyed. We have no home." Yeah, that was a great line. Good call, Brennan. So Laena's like, "Oh, you're reading about these dragon lords who you claim to have no attachment to." And it's not even that Daemon doesn't have attachment to that. He doesn't have attachment to Westeros and King's Landing or maybe even Dragonstone. He's thinking more about Valyria. And this is in keeping with Daemon as the most Valyrian Targaryen, with his sword and giving Rhaenyra the Valyrian necklace and stuff like that. So I really wish that we had seen Daemon and Laena fly to Valyria. I got over my skis a little bit and was thinking maybe they would do that. That's a rumor in the books, but so be it. Honestly, it just seemed like Alicent had a bit of a rage boner for Rhaenyra at this point, like it's been 10 years, get over it. Well, she definitely had a rage boner, but she's not going to get over it. This situation is, like, it doesn't even, think about what you're saying. It doesn't make sense. The problem is that her kids aren't legitimate, and that if that ever comes out, her whole line of succession is at stake. Okay, so like, this isn't something that can be ignored, and the fact that it's being ignored, kind of like everyone's pretending not to see it, is really bad. Like, forget Alicent and her personal motivations and maybe wanting her son to be king. The situation that Rhaenyra has created is very dangerous. Okay, I'm going to make a video about this that'll be coming out hopefully tomorrow or maybe Tuesday morning, I'd probably say. But the point is that they mentioned it kind of in this episode. They said, "Oh, if it's found out," Lionel was talking to Harwin, and he's saying, "You've exposed us. If they're found out, it could mean your head and Rhaenyra's and the children. That's because this is high treason." Okay, straight from Fire and Blood, that's what they say. The law is that if Rhaenyra's kids are not her kids, it's treason because she's trying to put Ubi Jace on the throne. And he's only on the throne if he's the child of Laenor and Rhaenyra. If he's not Laenor's son, it's high treason. And so not only is Jace not the heir, but Rhaenyra can't even be the heir if she's guilty of high treason. So it's a huge legal problem, and that's why Lionel's talking the way he is. And you can see Viserys hint at that as well, when Viserys says the repercussions of what you're suggesting are basically unthinkable or horrible or something like that. So I'm gonna make a video that goes into all the specific legalities of this. Oh, thank you, girl. There was a Minty sighting, everyone. And it's important. The thing about the law is that it's not an obscure legal clause. It's the law that everyone understands. And that's why Rhaenyra has to lie about it. And that's why Viserys has to lie about it. And that's what Viserys says. He's like, what you're suggesting has unbelievable consequences. That means that if Rhaenyra's kids aren't Laenor's, she's not the heir. Her kids can't be the heir. She's guilty of treason. And Viserys would have to disinherit her and probably pardon her, or exile her or something in order to get away from having to execute her. That's how serious this is. So, and no, it's not. So Gerald Garcia is saying there's no Magna Carta document. The king's word is law. That's not true. The law is a matter of precedent. It's kept by the maesters. But more importantly is the perception of the law. Because this gets into the whole feudal contract and the consent of the governed and all that. If the people understand that something is the law and the king or queen openly flouts the law, then they are undermining the legitimacy of their own rule. Because why would anyone consider them to be a rightful legal monarch if they're disregarding the laws of the land? That doesn't make any sense. So this is why it's a serious thing. It's not just because it's against the law. It's because everybody understands that. Everybody understands that if Rhaenyra's trying to put kids on the throne that aren't legitimate, that she's guilty of treason. The reason why this is such a problem is because it can cause a war, which it does. This is the thing about this. Anytime that you're trying to put an heir on the throne that isn't legitimate, people can find that out and then undermine their position to rule and put forward someone else as the next heir. And so it creates the potential for a succession crisis. And anytime there's a succession crisis, it can cause a war. So it's not just the law, it's also the perception of the law. There's really no way to say that she's in the right by doing this. It's treason, technically, and it's treason in the way that everyone understands it. So she's created the situation, her and Laenor and Harwin. And that's what Lionel is saying. You've exposed us. You know, you've exposed yourself. You could be beheaded, and so could Rhaenyra, and so could her kids. Well, you disagree about what? I mean, just tell me what you disagree with. Feel free to make your point. We can discuss this. Just tell me what you think. See, the thing is that the right of inheritance through her rather than their father, that's not how it works. They have to be Laenor's kids in order for them to be the heirs. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to lie about it. And they do more than lie about it.
Otherwise, why would she marry at all?
So, yeah. Otherwise, why would she marry at all? Exactly. She could just have kids. So, it is important. And that's why I don't like what Rhaenyra said, oh, you're Targaryen and that's all that matters. That shows you essentially how delusional Rhaenyra is. Just like her dad. She is pretending that something doesn't matter when it definitely does. And that's a problem. And not only that, but Rhaenyra's getting offended that people are even pointing this out. She's like, oh, these scurrilous rumors, these accusations. And Laenor's like, accusations? Really, Rhaenyra? Really? Like, we all know whose kids they are here. So Rhaenyra's kind of out to lunch on this. And that's why Alicent is so worked up about it. So you can see that they're both dug into their own little sort of positions here. No, she's delusional because she thinks that it doesn't matter when it does matter. And she thinks that people have no right to point at this when it's very obvious that she's breaking the law. That's what you guys don't understand. This isn't about morality. I don't care about virginity or chastity or any of that shit. And no, neither do any of you. The problem is the politics of the situation. Save it for the video you're making. Yeah, it's a good point. That's a good point. But again, the problem is the perception. If the monarch of a land is perceived as flouting the law, then they are undermining the legitimacy of their own rule. There's no way around that. You can't argue with that. So because those are facts. She doesn't care if people agree or not. Well, that's what's delusional. That she has the power to just do what she wants and not care if people agree or not. She's trying to be the ruler of Westeros. She needs to have support from both the people and the High Lords. So acting like that doesn't matter is delusional. And that's exactly what Daemon was confronting her with in the streets in episode 4. When she's like, well, the people don't get a choice. It doesn't matter what they think. And Daemon's like, yeah, it fucking matters. Of course it does. So please don't support Rhaenyra in her bad habits. That's not supporting the character. Like, we need to be supporting her when she does the right thing. Like when she rejected Sir Criston and said, I'm the realm. That was taking her position seriously. But pretending like it doesn't matter that everyone can see that she's committed treason is delusional. Absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm calling it. And I don't see how it isn't. Different values. It's not a matter of values. It's a matter of politics. Rhaenyra is a politician. Don't forget that. She's not just a person. She's a politician. And she's trying to rule the kingdom. So let's see here. Let's move on, or I will spoil the whole script for my video. She's absorbed a lot of Daemon's advice. This is where the Daemon advice has translated to. Not only it's like, oh, marriage is just an arrangement and we can have paramours. Like, well, yeah, you can if you're discreet about it. But if you have your paramour's kids 3 times, then that's not discreet. It's not. And Harwin's not also doing a very good job of not giving it away that he's the dad. So, yeah. Exactly. She's choosing to be blind that her position is shaky, and she's the one undermining her own position. So, yeah. Let's see here. I loved the idea that Rhaenyra is using the back chambers. That was awesome. Daemon showed her the back chambers when he snuck her out. So now we're to assume that she's been using those passages this whole time to monitor things and to listen to things. So that's kind of cool. And it kind of mirrors the idea that, like, Rhaenyra's a dragon rider. She gathers her intelligence directly. Alicent uses agents. She's not a lead from the front battle commander. So it shows the different personalities. Like Rhaenyra is very self-actualized. She goes and takes things on herself. And just like she did in episode 2 when she flew to Dragonstone and interceded between Otto and Daemon. So I like how they're showing that. They keep the personalities consistent. So Rhaenyra's using the tunnels, gathering her own intelligence, and at least learning to play politics to some extent. So, and you can see, okay, so let's talk about when Rhaenyra was leaving, she's saying, oh, we should have left earlier. Everyone's basically spreading rumors about me, aka everyone can see that these aren't my kids, and now I'm in political trouble. We should have left, a long time ago, before these rumors had a chance to grow. But the thing is, it's not good for Rhaenyra to be away from King's Landing. King's Landing is where the power is. She's the heir. So her leaving King's Landing is a major blow to her ability to have political power. And so this situation is something that it's a compromise situation that she's put herself in by having these kids that are the source of these rumors. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying you can't support Rhaenyra. I like I said, all of the characters are doing things wrong. So, there's no right answer here. There's a lot of different people are going to relate to different characters based on different things. And there's a lot of reasons to relate to Rhaenyra. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't or couldn't. I'm just saying we have to be realistic about the political consequences of what she's doing. We can't pretend like it doesn't matter because she has different values or whatever. It does matter. And she's undermining her own claim, which is super, super dangerous. So whoever has the actor for the role of Larys has a mesmerizing voice. Yeah, that monologue was crazy, where he's talking about children, and we see Viserys, is shaking hand, and he's thinking he's going to live forever and stuff like that. So yeah, that was a super creepy monologue, and I agree. Larys is growing on me as a character, for sure. What has Alicent done wrong, objectively speaking? Well, she's undermining the peace of the realm in a lot of ways. When she came to that wedding in a green dress, that was greatly undermining the realm. She's showing everyone that she has a feud with House Targaryen and with the king. She's inviting people to see her as a different center of power that is opposed to Rhaenyra. Then she's teaching her kids that the other kids are enemies. So these are all things that are going to contribute to the war breaking out. She also acted very dishonorably with Criston Cole. She's always talking about duty and all this stuff, but she hid Criston Cole's sin. And then we can assume that the only reason Criston's still on the Kingsguard is because Alicent probably had to intercede for him. She stopped him from committing suicide and then essentially used that to take ownership of Criston and make Criston her tool. So she's using this dishonored knight as her thug, essentially, and then pretending like she's all about decency and stuff. So that's pretty hypocritical. But the main thing that we're looking at is actions that could lead to war or that will eventually lead to war. The job of the High Lords, first and foremost, is to not have a war. It's because when we have a war, that's when the people suffer the most. The job of the High Lords is to take care of the people. We've been over all this. So anything that leads to war is the most villainous act that people can do. And Alicent has done a lot in the last 2 episodes, I have to say, to undermine the peace of the realm. Now, when you're talking about Team Green and just people being skeptical of Dragon Lords in general, yeah, you can understand that. Like I've said that. The Dragon Lords are essentially barbarian warlord kings. You could understand. I mean, would you want some random person with a dragon to be your master and overlord and king? Like, no, that would suck. They might be Maegor sometimes. So you can understand why people oppose the Targaryens just on principle. It's not like unthinkable. So, and from that standpoint, you can say, well, Alicent is just playing the Game of Thrones. She's playing for her side. And you can make that case for everybody. But again, bottom line, if you're undermining the stability of the current ruling family, then you're making it more likely that war is going to happen. So that's what Alicent has done wrong. How did Harwin get expelled from the City Watch for throwing a couple of punches, but Criston received no consequences for killing a man in cold blood at a wedding? Because he's the Kingsguard. The Kingsguard is essentially the bodyguard of the king and the royals. So whatever the royals say about the Kingsguard is what happens. It really is. The Kingsguard are pretty much above the law. We saw Joffrey use the Kingsguard to beat Sansa openly in court. So the Kingsguard is pretty much, it's up to the king and the queen. If Viserys and Alicent and whoever didn't want Criston in trouble, then he's not in trouble. That's why I said we can assume that it must have been Alicent who interceded, because otherwise he would be in trouble. Now the Criston, yeah, not only are the Kingsguard like cops, they're like glorified cops. They're the most cop of cops. They're the most untouchable reputation-wise, of cops. So yeah, I don't know why people had such a hard time understanding why Criston wasn't arrested on the spot. Like, well, because he's a Kingsguard. Who's going to arrest him? Nobody. The answer is nobody. Nobody arrests the Kingsguard. It would have to be the other Kingsguard on command of the king. That's basically the only person that can arrest the Kingsguard. I am above the law. Yeah, absolutely. So that's why. And if you punch a Kingsguard, that's essentially almost like punching a royal. It's not something that Harwin can get away with. So, and being stripped of your post is like, yeah, whatever. I mean, Harwin is the firstborn of House Strong. He's going to inherit Harrenhal. So for him, the City Watch was never his career post. That was just something he was doing to gain prestige and training and experience and stuff like that. He was never going to do that for the rest of his life. He's going to inherit Harrenhal. Let's see. I think you could argue that Daemon is one of the most morally centered characters. As long as you're good with incest, he prioritizes his family, and the nastiest stuff he does is unconfirmed. No, he murdered Rhea Royce, and the way he acted with Rhaenyra was incredibly selfish. He tarnished Rhaenyra's reputation on purpose in order to try to get Viserys to see her as sullied and then give her to Daemon in marriage. And he didn't ask Rhaenyra about that. That was unbelievably selfish. So I would have to respectfully disagree with that take. I think that Daemon is actually basically amoral and that he doesn't have really a compass other than loyalty to who he's loyal to. Other than that, I don't think he believes in right or wrong. He beat the messenger, which is literally the definition of something that's unjustified to do. His leadership in the Stepstones was bad. He made battle plans based on his own personal desires, which puts other people at risk. He should be making battle plans only on what is the most strategic thing, but he forced that attack against the crab feeder because he didn't want it to be perceived that Viserys had helped him win. So, and I don't think he's really loyal. I mean, I think there's a certain amount of family loyalty, But it's, like I said, it's in a selfish way, because he undermines Viserys too. Even though he's loyal to Viserys, he also undermines Viserys. Just like he was not careful with Rhaenyra's honor when he drug her out into King's Landing that night. So I think he's very narcissistic and self-centered. That's how I read the character. Maisha says, as Princess of Dragonstone, she also has a duty to administer the lands sworn to Dragonstone. No. That is true, Maisha. Technically, the heir to the throne usually is named as the Prince of Dragonstone, but that doesn't mean they have to be out there. Most, like we've seen that Jaehaerys made his heirs Hand of the King and kept them at court, even though that. So Prince of Dragonstone is kind of a title. I don't think you got to really live out there. Administer it, yes. I would agree with that. Have we mentioned that Viserys has one arm now? No, we haven't, but he definitely does. And we speculated on that. That arm was looking pretty rank. So 9 years, 10 years later, it's obviously it was going to be gone. So that made sense. But his skin's looking way worse, looking all spotty and hair falling out. Yeah. No, Daemon is entertaining. He's a great character, for sure. Frank, I can't answer that question. That's a spoiler one. Why does Harwin get punished for hitting a Kingsguard and Criston gets nothing for dragging around Jaehaerys, the heir apparent? Well, I answered the first one. Harwin getting punished for hitting a Kingsguard, that's predictable. That's just something they have to do. And because you have, the Kingsguard have to be unquestioned to function as the king's bodyguard. So that's just predictable. As far as Criston getting nothing for dragging around Jaehaerys, well, he's supposed to be beating the kids up. He's got some leeway. He's training them. But he's, like I said, he's doing it right in front of Viserys. So if Viserys wanted, he could chew Criston out for being one-sided in his training, but he's not. So I don't know what Criston is supposed to get in trouble for there exactly, except for from Viserys. But I think he was trying to provoke Harwin. Well, they didn't show the missing arm. It was just, you could tell that the sleeve was empty when you see him. Didn't Laena say something along the lines about this not being the marriage he truly wanted? He was loyal as far as we know. Right. So Laena was just referring to the fact that Daemon, she knows that Daemon's in love with Rhaenyra, and that that was his first choice. So that was pretty ambiguous. We see Daemon being a little cold to Laena too. So we can see that relationship is a little up and down. There are some warm moments as well. But yeah, basically Laena is saying, I know you still love Rhaenyra with that comment. Thoughts about the kids, how they're portrayed so far? Well, I thought it was great. I thought the kids, I liked the fact that they weren't at odds at first, and I really liked the learning how to train the dragons. I went over that a little bit earlier. Let me see if I missed any scenes here. Oh yeah, so I think we can say that Lionel really was a good advisor. In that conversation with Harwin, it seems like Lionel is what he seems. He was just trying to be a good hand of the king and give Viserys good advice. So it's nice to know that there was one character who really just was trying to do his best. So there you go. And Harwin's a little bitter. Harwin's like, oh, why don't you just take my side, no matter what? Well, that's because Lionel's more realistic than that, and he takes his duty as Hand of the King very seriously. And I think his offer to resign was sincere. He was basically saying that he couldn't give honest advice because he's pretty sure that Harwin is the dad, and this is compromised. He can't. You can see just what it compromises his ability to give, unbiased advice. So that's why he resigned or tried to resign. So I think we can say that Harwin was basically an honorable, not Harwin, Lionel. God, Lionel was an honorable character. Why didn't anyone else pay attention to the favoritism that Criston Cole was showing? Well, if the king's not saying anything, then who else is going to say something? Maybe one of the other Kingsguard, I guess. But if Cole's in charge of training all the kids, then it's up to somebody like Viserys to observe it. I mean, you could, like I said, Laenor could have been there, but he wasn't. And that's not really, where Rhaenyra's going to be. George, yes, I've got a George Funko Pop. I've also got a couple Easter eggs hiding on the shelf here, but no one has noticed them. There's at least one Easter egg that's showing. There's a new item on the shelf straight from the episode. So, props. I'll shout out whoever can spot it first. Yeah, lots of Ned Stark energy from Lionel, except for he's more savvy. A truly honorable man and killed because of it. Yeah, that's true. So when Daemon said, "You're the king, your word is law," like, that's wrong. That's Daemon showing that he doesn't understand how authority really rules. Authority always flows from the consent of the governed. Even if that consent is just not rioting, that still counts. And this is, like I said, Roose Bolton even understands this. He talks about a quiet land and a quiet people when he's talking to Ramsay. And he's saying, your cruelties are going to get us in trouble. He's not saying they're wrong or immoral. He's saying that you keep torturing people and people keep talking about it. And that's going to stir up rebellion against us. So that's the whole thing about this. Like, for a monarch to say, well, whatever I say is the law, that's not a responsible attitude, and that will eventually lead to a rebellion. So, and that's why Daemon's unfit to rule. That sentence in particular shows that Daemon is unfit, and that Viserys understands a lot better about what the job of a king is. Yes, sorry if I'm disagreeing strongly, but just calling it like I see it.
Someone's seen the Easter egg.
Who called it?
Callisto Fury.
Callisto Fury spotted the rat. The rat. Yes, he's on my bookshelf. Crawled right out of the walls of King's Landing and onto my bookshelf. Yep. So, and it's the same thing with Rhaenyra. We're not judging Rhaenyra's having Harwin's kids from a moral sense. We're judging it from the sense of it's going to create political drama. And so we can judge Rhaenyra morally from the sense of you're not being responsible to the realm, but it's not about sexual behavior or purity or anything like that. Her and Laenor had an arrangement, so that's fine. She just needed to have Laenor's kids and not Harwin's kids. That's really all it comes down to. Yeah, a king with no regard for the law will not be king for long. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Hey, we're going to need a rat catcher. Going to need a rat catcher. So let's see here. Are we going to talk about Aemond in the window? It was Aegon in the window. And yes, we did, Casey. I said it reminded me of Life of Brian, Monty Python, when he was naked in the window. But it's also just character building, showing you that he's just a horny kid, not ready to be thrust into a succession crisis necessarily. Let's see here. Oh yeah, the Rhaenyra and Laenor relationship. I definitely noticed that bit where Rhaenyra commands him, like, oh, well, then I order you to stay here. It just kind of shows you their relationship isn't really even, right? Like, that's what happens when you're the prince consort, is your wife can order you to do something. So just thought that was interesting. But of course, you can see why she did that. Because if Laenor's not there, then it looks even worse. Although it is understandable that he would go to war with his dragon. I just think Rhaenyra was feeling the heat, and she wanted Laenor there for that. I loved that when Daemon and Laena were sitting there, and Laena's like, "Oh yes, Rhaenyra's given birth again," and Daemon's like, "Any word whether or not the baby bears an entirely coincidental resemblance to the commander of the City Watch?" So that was nice snark from Daemon, and it just shows you like everybody knows what's going on. Even Daemon in in Pentos knows what's going on. So, oh, did you notice in the small council they were swinging the incense behind Viserys? That's a hint that Viserys stinks. I mean, he's rotting, so he would stink. And it's more Emperor Wears No Clothes stuff, where everyone pretends like the king isn't a walking corpse, but he basically is. So, yeah. That was tough.
Anthony wants to know if we will see Prince Daeron, or is that a spoiler? I missed the super chat apparently.
Okay, well, Prince Daeron it's not a spoiler. Someone's just asking if we'll see the fourth child of Viserys and Alicent, whose name is Daeron. I have heard that we will, but I also heard that Laena claiming Vhagar was cut from episode 2. And tonight, we found out that was bullshit. Because Laena said she claimed Vhagar when she was 15. And Laena was 12 in that episode. So unless the episode had a 3-year time jump at the end for one scene of teenage Laena claiming Vhagar, which seems not likely because they haven't time jumped in the middle of any episodes. At least not significantly. So yeah, that was a false rumor. There was no cut scene of young Laena claiming Vhagar. At least not that went on episode 2, because in episode 2 she was 12. So just goes to show you the stuff you hear on the internet, not usually true. And so we don't know if Daeron's going to be involved. I would think so, because they've not cut any characters so far, really. So yeah. If he stinks that bad, it makes it worse that he's going around kissing people on the cheek. Yes, it does. It's uncomfortable and it's awkward. There's lots of things that are awkward at this point. Do you think it's somehow Rhaenyra's children, where with Laenor and they had Valyrian features, that it would have... Oh, if her children were Laenor's, that it would have changed anything in the long term? Because I doubt it. Yes, of course it would have changed things in the long term. I don't understand how it wouldn't, because this is the main thing that undermined the legitimacy of Rhaenyra's claim and allowed the Greens to press their case. Would there still have been a war? Possibly. But I don't think you conclude that there would have been, because this is one of the major things that it turned on. So I think that you can argue that the war still would have happened, but this was a major piece of it. So if it was different, things would be very, very different. The Greens wouldn't have had hardly a leg to stand on. And again, we can't really discuss that too much without getting into spoiler territory, but of course it would be different. Not only, here's why it would be different. Because Rhaenyra would be better able to consolidate power. People have been watching her have kids that aren't Laenor's, which is treason, for 7 years now. So everybody has this perception that Rhaenyra is just flouting the law and still expects to be sat on the throne. So this greatly undermines her claim, both in the eyes of the High Lords and the people, and that affects her position. It weakens her position to the point where it can be challenged. So if she had had Laenor's kids, her position would be a lot stronger right now, let alone by the time the war starts. So yes, it's a huge factor, and it would make a huge difference. I don't see how you could argue otherwise, really. Why do they still call him Sir Laenor? Shouldn't the Prince Consort title hold precedence? Well, I don't think they're going to say Prince Consort Laenor every time. I guess they could say Prince Laenor. Yeah, that's a good question. Why aren't they calling him Prince and not and they're calling him Sir, not Prince? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Why does it undermine her claim? I mean, I just explained it, Misty, because it's against the law. It's treason to put someone on the throne who isn't who they're supposed to be. And it's treason because it can cause a succession crisis, which it does. So, yeah. It undermines her claim because it's treason for her to have kids with Harwin. And the fact that everyone can see that that's what she's doing means that everyone can see that she's breaking the law openly, which undermines her legitimacy. Because if a ruler doesn't obey the law, then they aren't seen as legitimate because it's the law that makes them legitimate. So it's pretty simple, really. I think that's the best as I can explain it. Hopefully it made sense. And looking at the scenes here, yeah, they should call him Prince. That's what I thought. That makes sense to me too. Viserys insulting Otto right in front of Alicent, that was interesting. When he was saying to Lionel, oh, you give me unbiased support and nobody else does that here. So he's kind of insulting Alicent and Otto at the same time. But of course, Otto and Alicent don't give impartial advice. And Alicent even admitted that herself when she's like, if my dad were here, he would take my side. And that's what I want. So, yeah, Viserys is right there. But it was a pretty hard diss also. So they're not very close. But it's predictable. So, do you think that Harwin could have been a good match for King Consort? Yeah, potentially. The Strongs are not as prestigious as Lannister or Velaryon, but they are an ancient First Men house, and they hold a very powerful castle. So yeah, I think that could have worked. I would have been acceptable. Because they were thinking about marrying Rhaenyra to all kinds of people. So I think it wasn't just like, oh, she can only marry the most prestigious family. Did you notice that Rhaenyra had a black council stone and Alicent a green one? No, I didn't, but that's cool. And I do love the whole council stone symbolism. Sorry there, girl. What was the pin on the clothes of the arsonist at Harrenhal? Minty thought it was a clubfoot. I thought it was a hand, but I didn't. I only saw it for a second. It reminded me of the little. Never mind. I don't want to bring that up. Yeah, I'm going to say it was a clubfoot. But if someone saw it, pipe up. Yeah, we talked about Helaena. I missed the details of the line, but it did seem like she was dreaming. So I'm going to go back and I'll cover that in the detailed review that I will do. Rhae can't fully control whose baby she has. If she sleeps with Laenor and Sir Harwin, she can't mainline dangerous Moon Tea. Celibate is a big ask. Well, this is definitely getting outside of my personal expertise. But, I mean, women do have some amount of control as far as, I guess, we don't understand exactly how much knowledge of biology they have in Westeros, but I don't know. I mean, if she, yeah, Harwin, exactly. Harwin could have pulled out. She could have, what she should have done is conceived a child with Laenor before she was sleeping with Harwin. And obviously she wouldn't be wanting to sleep with Harwin at the same time period that she's trying to get pregnant from Laenor. So it obviously is understandable if, like, one of the kids ended up being Harwin's accidentally. But all three being Harwin's kind of means that they weren't really trying to have Laenor's kids. It seems like he was just the surrogate. So I need to know how they cut Viserys' arm off without dying. Why would you need to know that? They used a tourniquet and stuff. Melissa, let me see if I can find your super chat here.
So they can do that, but they can't do a cesarean.
I just don't know how much bad surgery we need. So all these purple ones are ones that I missed?
Yes.
Okay, Princess Lioness. I don't like how they changed Laena's death. Okay, we already talked about that. She already had agency in the books. This feels like this was done for the sake of shock value. I don't understand. She didn't lose any agency in this. She's the one who went out there and chose how she was going to die and then commanded her own dragon to burn her. She had 100% agency. In fact, she had more agency than in the books. So I'm confused about that. Yeah, I don't understand that one. I respectfully disagree. Just don't get that. Centrium, Daemon isn't as effective on the throne. He's more beneficial to his family being a rogue. He's just pro-Targaryen. Yeah, I agree with that. I've said that early on Viserys should have kept Daemon at his side as his right-hand man, particularly because Viserys doesn't have a dragon. Pull-out game weak. That's right. Thank you, Tim. I know you're listening to Cardi B all the time. Appreciate that. I like Rhaenyra. Also used the halls like Daemon. Yeah, I love that, Mackenzie. Like I said, it says a lot about her that she's doing her own spying. So, yeah, I think Laena went out like a gangster. I really don't understand. I'm disappointed she's gone so quick, but
they just needed to make it seem like she'd been in labor for like a week. You know, it was like they just gave up after like an hour.
well, I think we were supposed to assume it was the same situation as Emma, right? Where they're like, he's like, oh, I just can't get the baby out. I could cut it out, but that's all I can do. He should have said it's turned around, because then we would have known that it's the same thing. But we're supposed to assume it's the same situation where there was no way to do it. I guess you could judge Laena for not sacrificing her life to try to save the baby, but yeah, I don't really judge her for that myself. So yeah, she went out on her own terms. That's the main thing about it. So yeah, it was definitely gut-wrenching. Fantastical Princess. I don't like the way they did Daemon and Laena this episode. The way they changed the dynamic of their relationship, and with Rhae, it feels like someone who wants to push the Rhaenyra ship above all else. Well, in the books, we're not really told much about their relationship. It's one of those things where the singers say that Daemon fell for Laena and that it was love at first sight. And the maesters say that it was an obvious political move. And they never tell us. And there's also a little bit of a hint that Daemon might have killed Laena in order to free himself to marry Rhaenyra. So that rumor is in there too. So I don't think that you can call it a change. I think they chose one possible portrayal of their relationship. I understand being disappointed, though. I was a little disappointed to see that Daemon wasn't treating Laena with the utmost respect in every scene, like the queen that she is. I was disappointed in Daemon a little bit. And the pain of Laena knowing that Daemon is actually in love with someone else, that sucked. So I was a little disappointed about that too. But that's real, though. That's the thing is, it's disappointing in the sense that, like, I wish Daemon would act better. But I don't know that I could say it's disappointing as like, oh, I'm sorry that they chose that reality to portray. It's a believable version of it, in my opinion. Rhaenyra's trail of blood led to Criston. Symbolism. Yeah, I guess that would be obvious symbolism. I didn't see where it led to. I was just too shocked by the trail of blood itself. So, yeah. Let's see here. Uniquely Stellar says, hey, y'all, just finished the episode behind due to pausing while at work. I'll have to rewatch, but damn, Laena just broke my heart. Yep. Well, timely. Yes, we're all sad. We're all sad. So, no, they didn't know that the baby would die, no. But I still can't blame her for not wanting to be cut open like that. So, yeah. The story is moving fast. The thing is that it's really, the story is about the war. So this entire first season is really like a prologue for the war itself. It's part of the story too, but it's going to slow down at the beginning of season 2 and go at a much slower pace. So you could think that it's going too fast, but we also could be grateful that they are covering so much of the buildup and not just summarizing it. So, you know. And I will go ahead and say last call for questions. I'm getting pretty tired. My voice is tired. I've done a lot of streaming.
Rise of the Dragon, 25th of October?
Yeah. Well, you know, I was just chatting with I don't know how to say his name. It looks like Urtak. I think it might be Urtach or something like that. But Urtach Altanaz, famous artist. He's doing the dragon head of Balerion, or did the Balerion head that's on the cover of the book. So very happy for him in that opportunity. And a lot of our favorite artists will be putting out new art. So yeah, obviously that's pretty exciting. Season 1 is ground zero that leads up to the Phantom Pain, the war. Yes, it does. I found it remarkable that Larys had personal access to the Queen's chambers and just openly comes and goes. Well, that just tells you, like, he's the Queen's spider, you know? So, I think that's what it was. And, we did get a couple PayPals. From Aaron, thank you, Aaron G. From Roxana, why did the Hand's son kill his brother and dad? Because he's a cold MFer. Well, first of all, he now stands to inherit Pentos, but he's playing a political game here. I suspect that Larys might also be a little, like, fucked in the head or something, like either really traumatized or sociopathic or something. Like, I mean, he's just like, oh, well, you sort of made a suggestion, so I went and killed my family. It's like, okay, buddy. Yeah, that's horrifying. So we'll have to see how they develop the character, but that's the kind of character he is. We can say that much. Samantha C, aka Cinnabarb, says, this whole episode was amazing. Every scene I kept saying, wow, for different reasons. Love how all the book fans picked up on Helaena being a dreamer. I can't believe Alicent said, maybe one day you'll get one that looks like you to Laenor. That was straight from the books again. I wasn't sure about the time jump, but that first long scene with Emma Darcy sold me. Yeah, like I said at the beginning, the actors are great. Definitely sold on that. I like how it's leveled up in intensity, and the players are older, so they can have more complex lines. You know, the things that they say have more veiled stuff behind them. So, yeah, I like it. It feels like we're kicking into overdrive now, you know, or that we've graduated to a different level. So, definitely not a letdown. And I know Gray and Tony both thought this was the best episode so far. I still think episode 4 was the best, but this was really good. Viserys holding Emma's ring and crying while Daemon didn't really show emotion towards Laena's death was a great juxtaposition. That's true. Just shows you Daemon is really repressed with his emotions. Yeah. Yeah, Larys will inherit Harrenhal. I don't know what I said, but yeah. He would be the heir to Harrenhal. Dragon of the Week is obviously Vhagar. That goes without saying. New memes will be forthcoming, of course. Absolutely. Balanced Beans Bookkeeping, thanks for all the great work. House of the Dragon is so good. My husband is getting into it, and he hated Game of Thrones. It's definitely a different vibe on the show. There's a lot of things that feel similar, but a lot of things that don't. And it's very much more an adult show. So, yeah, I do think it's going to appeal to different people. Thanks for breaking it down. Rest your voice, get a snack, give Cleo a nice head scratch. I will. I certainly will. Yeah, Dragon of the Week is Vhagar. Scene of the Week, probably the one in the training yard. That was gripping. And just Harwin beating up Criston that just needed to happen. So I'm going to go with that as my scene of the week. Already said Harwin was the hero of the week. Laena, also a hero of the week. And villain would obviously be Larys. They cut the scene of Daemon comforting his daughters this episode, someone says. Okay, well, I mean, that's still a directing choice, you know. All right, guys, cool. Well, thanks for coming out. And I will see you, like I said, with a video probably on Tuesday morning. And that will be a sort of a unique video about Rhaenyra's kids and the legality there. And then I'll have my episode review coming along later in the week. The jail scene. Oh, sorry. I said I could explain it and then didn't. Yeah, so that was Larys paying those dudes to go and set the fire at Harrenhal. And the whole idea is that he would only send them on condition that he cut their tongues out. So they could never confess because they can't write. So if they can't write, then they can't tell. So that's what he's saying. Is like, you guys are condemned to die. The better deal is I'll cut your tongue out. You go set a fire, and then you're free to go on your own way and live the life of a person who can't talk to anyone. But that's better than being dead for some people, I guess. So that's what that was. There you go. Yes, and in case you haven't missed, the co-host, Grey Waste, Tim, and Nettles, I figured out I was trying to do too much by having a discussion panel and a post-game answer session at once, so I split those apart. We did a stream yesterday with Grey Waste, Tim, and Nettles. We reviewed the character arcs through the first 5 episodes. That was a 3-hour power stream, 3.5 hours. So check that out. Lots of Grey Waste, Tim, and Nettles action. All right, guys, thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience, and I will see you again soon with a fresh, hot video and fresh, hot Vagar memes.